And I'll create that person class now. So I'll say new ActionScript class person. And I'll notice I won't extend sprites, I won't extend event dispatcher, nothing up my sleeves, it's just a class without any extension there. Okay. So, what will we do now? Actually, if you want to create a signal or a type of event, you just create a property here. And you need to be able to access that property, so you need to make it public or make a getter and setter function. So I'll say public for announced, and I'll say signal. So I've just created a signal, an event that I can dispatch from this class. Now I'll create a function called public function announce, which takes some value. And I just want to say announced.dispatch value. So in the constructor, the only thing I still need to do is just instantiate the signal. And this is actually all the code that's needed to dispatch it. So I've created a signal instance here. I've instantiated it in the constructor. And then I'm dispatching it with a value. And that value is the string that gets passed to this function. So we go back here, and I'll say in the constructor here, I'll say pager.announce, and I'll say hello world. Okay? I'll translate the person. And now I have to listen to this. And that's where it gets interesting. So I say Peter dot. And now I look for the signal. So the signal is a public property of that class. So that is announced. And that signal has a few functions you can use. You can use non-listeners, which is the number of listeners that are subscribed to it. But the easy thing here is just use add. And add, you pass a function to. So I'll say on announce. That's a function we create here. And that also gets back those arguments that get passed. So in this case it's a string value. I'll just say Peter said, and then trace out the value. So just to repeat, I created that person class, I reference its signal, so the event, and I say I want to add a listener to it on announce, and I announce it, so I trigger the event to get dispatched, and then I just trace out the value that gets passed. So if all went well, it's always tricky if you code this manually. I'll just run this now. Carefully look in the output window, and you'll see Peter said hello world. So that's actually a signal that got dispatched, and I got that back into my other class. Now, just switching back to this, you'll see I dispatched a value. So I could dispatch like 100 things here. I could dispatch a number, I could dispatch a boolean, whatever amount of instances you want to pass here, you can do. Only your listeners need to implement that same set of arguments. So in this case, I'm passing that value string, I'm passing a number, I'm parsing a boolean, and I'm parsing a URL request class. Now, that's good, but it could be better. You could strong type this. And how you could strong type this is just by in the signal constructor putting the types. So in this case, we say string, comma, number, comma, boolean, comma, URL. So now, it will strong type those arguments. I'll just run this, we'll get an error, but you'll see it anyway. We get an error, and that error is that I didn't implement all the arguments. It says here, the listener has one argument, but it needs at least 4. Because we gave 4 arguments in the dispatch code, the listeners also have to implement that. So I'll go back to that hello signal here. So the second one was a number. Then the third one was a boolean. And then URL was the URL request. custom event without having to extend the event class, and you can pass anything you want. Now, just to show you some of the other nice features here, so I can just call this a few times. So you expect this to be called 5 times now, so I'll just run this to show you. I get 5 trace statements. But something else that is unique to AS3 Signals is they also have a feature called add once. That's very useful because if you only want an event listener to trigger one time, you don't have to write a code that removes the event listener in the handler. So essentially this just triggers the event one time and then removes it. So if you just want one click event and you don't need to capture the rest, that's a way to do it. So I'll just run this now, and if all goes well, we'll just see one hello world. So one hello world instead of 5, even though I announced it 5 times. Does that make sense? So that is a basic signal. I'll just jump back to show you a few of the other ones. So the next one is a deluxe signal. Now, using this signal is good for most cases, but there's another use case where you need to get the targets. So sometimes you get an event and you want to know who dispatched it, and you might have a switch statement, although that's not very good practice, or you might want to do something with that target and dispatch the code. So that's what deluxe signal does. Does everything Signals does, the signal command does, but it adds support for the target and a signal reference. So it knows who dispatched the event and what type of event it was. And the way it does this is by passing a generic event to the listener. The pass for this is all.signals.deluxe signals. So these are the two signals you use most of the time. Like Signals for just referencing messages, and deluxe signal if you need to get the target. So that's one of the advantages. If you use ActionScript 3, the event is always the same. It's always a heavyweight event with priority.